All right, guys, what's up? It's Dan from Camacho. I am still on the road, and hopefully it's not getting too dark. I want to talk about a few topics today that I am personally very, very fascinated in. I want to talk today, guys, about immortality, and not in the way that you may think. I don't want to get all religious on you or anything like that. But I want to talk about immortality. I want to talk about programmable cells or programmable DNA. I want to talk about how that relates to cryptocurrency and blockchain. I want to talk about how, what things are coming in the future in terms of robotics, in nanotechnology, the singularity, kind of all those topics and how they all weave and merge together, right? I'm very, very interested in all of those topics for different reasons, different personal reasons, different philosophical reasons, different religious reasons, in general, right? I'm just interested in those topics. And first, immortality. That's a very, very interesting idea, a very interesting concept that really all of humanity has always been trying to achieve, right? There's not a point in time in history where a group of people have not strived or been striving to become immortal in some way or another. That is partly why religion has really crept up and has been really proliferated across the world, around the universe for so long. People want to know what's going to happen when they die, and people want to overcome death, right? And today, we are getting closer and closer to becoming able to extend human lifespan. I mean, even in the last couple hundred years, we've significantly extended human lifespan, from 30, 40 years old all the way now. I think the average lifespan is like in the 80s for women. And I think even maybe men, but it's increasing, guys, and it's going to continue to increase as advances in technology start to really materialize and take shape, hopefully in this century. And I think there's been a lot of progress, movement, and breakthroughs that have really enabled this, right? One of those is, programmable DNA, programmable genetics, right? Being able to actually tap into a human genome, so the DNA, the fundamental makeup or fundamental building blocks of a human being and really of all matter, scientists have now been able to tap in to that fundamental piece of nature and manipulate it at precision that has never ever happened before in the past, right? And I've been following this for a long time, probably for a decade, probably for 10 years. I've been kind of watching what's going on in this field, right? And back in the day, like, I was pretty young at the time, but they were sequencing the human genome, I remember, and it took years and years for them to do this. And it was done by the government, and it was slow, and it was tedious, and it cost like millions and millions of dollars to do it. Then along came an entrepreneur called Craig Venter, who actually, did all of the... Craig Venter came along, and with his private enterprise, they decoded the human genome for like a fraction of the cost. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was a fraction of the cost that the government was spending to do the exact same thing. And that's because of enterprise, free markets, incentives, things like that, right? Which I'm not going to get into right now at the moment. But that is why it happened much more quickly, right? Now they're able to they're able to decode and map a human genome very inexpensively. I believe it's even in the thousands of dollars now at this point. And that is dramatically decreasing, and it will ultimately become in the hundreds of dollars, if not less, in the next couple decades, right? And what that means is that every, animal, every human on the planet at some point or another is going to map their human genome. And that's already happening through things like Ancestry.com, 23andMe, which Google is running. That's already kind of happening. And imagine if you have a map of your genome, your genetic makeup that makes you, the fundamental building blocks, the fundamental matter and materials and organization of that matter and materials that make up you, that make you, right? What if everybody had that at their fingertips? I mean, okay, so that's kind of step one, which is happening as we speak. It's happening right now. Step two is then the ability to manipulate or to program and reprogram different parts of that genome, of that genetic makeup, right? To reprogram it to make you do other things. Maybe you want to hold your breath longer. Maybe you want to be able to breathe underwater. Maybe you want to be able to jump very high, and maybe you want to be able to run, for an extended period of time. All of these things can be introduced into a human body or ecosystem, over time by modifying the genetic makeups of that organism, right? There are some people in the world that can hold their breath tremendously long, right? There's people that can run extremely fast. There are people that are very, very strong. That's because they have specific genetics which enable them to do that. Obviously, there's hard work, training, and all that involved as well, but the genetics make a big part of that up. And we're getting to a point where we can actually program DNA in a way to modify those genomes, right? The next step after that is then to be introducing things that we never even thought we were able to do, right? Breathe in space, for example, like, breathe something else other than oxygen, right? I mean, things that are just kind of out there, completely science fiction at this point. We're beginning to be able to understand theoretically how that's possible, right? And that's developing at a very, very fast, rapid pace, right? And look up, there's a few people that I think you should look up. The one guy that I've been following a lot, his name is Juan Enriquez. He is a fascinating guy. He I believe he's the chairman of Synthetic Genomics. He also is, the chair and CEO of a couple other companies as well. But he digs very, very deep into these topics, and he gives very good presentations on how this stuff is happening, what it's happening, and what it actually means, right? And so I encourage you to search for Juan Enriquez. Another guy is Craig Venter. Obviously, he's one of the key scientists behind a lot of these inventions. Look up the inventors of CRISPR. They got some fascinating work behind them as well. But I've been watching things where, that's kind of only one piece of the puzzle, right? We're getting also into an era where we can actually but we can artificially grow body parts in a laboratory from scaffolding and programmed DNA, right? So think of this. Imagine this, because this is actually happening and has happened, and you could watch this, you could Google this and watch videos on this right now. So think of a scaffold, right? A scaffold that looks like a heart. Think of like when you're trying to make a piñata. Have you ever made a piñata with like paper mache? You build a scaffold with the paper mache. You get a balloon, you blow up a balloon, you get paper mache, and you put paper mache around this balloon, you let it dry, you then pop the balloon, and you have this scaffold of a circle, right, of a balloon. Then, from that scaffolding, you could decorate it, you could, put on fancy colors, color it, put on tissue paper, and make a piñata from that scaffold, okay? So the same concept is being brought into the genetic world, right? Into the biological world, where they can actually make a scaffold that looks like a heart, on the scaffold, on the surface, right? And they get DNA, like the genetic components that make up a heart, whatever tissues make up, whatever DNA and genetic materials make up the tissues that make up a heart, they will put that into a solution, and they will drip that solution onto a heart scaffold, right? Over time, those cells grow and they grow and they grow, similar to a fly that has been captured in amber, layer upon layer upon layer. They do the exact same thing with hearts. Now, over time, these hearts, they grow and grow into, real full-size hearts, right? And they have actually gotten to a point where they can grow these hearts in laboratories with straight up DNA liquid. That's what I'm gonna call it, DNA liquid. And they can electrocute these hearts and make them beat. That is Frankenstein. That is some crazy, crazy shit. That is a crazy concept. But I've seen it. You can Google this. You can look at the videos. You can look at the research being done. Still very much in test phase, theoretical phase, experimentation phase, whatever you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is that the fact that they've been able to grow a heart in a lab from DNA solutions, DNA liquid, and then they've been able to shock that heart with electricity and make that heart pump like a regular heart is absolutely mind-boggling. It is absolutely mind-boggling, absolutely flooring. It changes my entire perception of life, of how life works, of what life is, of everything, right? So that's another piece of the puzzle here, and you can kind of explore with your mind how you want to how you want to take that, all right? And so now that they can regrow body parts, they're also regrowing tracheas, they've regrown ears, they've regrown bladders, they've regrown livers. In a couple decades time, they're going to be able to regrow body parts for people, right? They're going to be able to create artificial hearts and artificial body parts like you've never ever seen before. And that's happening right now under our eyes. The media doesn't talk about this stuff, guys, but you can find it. It's not conspiracy. You can find well-known university professors that are researching this stuff. You can find real businesses that are actually investing in this stuff, like Google is a very good example of this. They're investing in 23andMe. They're investing in a company called, I think it's called Calico, maybe, or Calco, something like that, with the goal of extending human lifespan. And they are looking into all of these different types of technologies because of the potential that they have, right? This is crazy stuff. They're also actually starting to grow human body parts inside of animal cadavers, right? So think of a pig cadaver or a pig, and think about humans growing human bladders inside of a pig cadaver. It's happening. This is not science fiction, guys. This is actually happening. Google it. You can find it. You can read about it. This isn't a conspiracy. Like, you can actually meet the professors that are doing this stuff, the doctors. And that's the thing I find so fascinating, right? And so, sorry, I gotta remember I'm driving here. I'm pretty into this, but I gotta remember that I am actually driving and it's getting a little bit dark. So I'm gonna have to go quick with this video, guys, because I want to relate it back to my main point at the beginning of the video. But okay, so all this is happening right under our noses, right? And eventually you're going to be able to introduce new DNA molecules like an X and a Y instead of a ACTG. Right now there's 4 amino acids, A, C, T, and G, which make up all DNA, which make up all the building blocks of life, which make up me and you, the rocks, and everything in the world, right? Pretty soon you're going to be able to introduce artificial DNA amino acids like an X or a Y, and you'll be able to program those to do what you want, right? So you'll be able to do things like, for example, program paint, that whenever paint on a wall chips or cracks or becomes nicked, it will replace itself, right? You'll be able to get to the point where you have plastics that when they crack, they will be able to replace themselves. Cement, when they crack, they'll be able to replace themselves. You'll have things that, like kitty litter, when it becomes really dirty, it will reprogram itself to smell better. Maybe it'll smell like strawberries or bananas. That's a pretty stupid example, but kind of a funny one, right? You're gonna have these things, these products that are being invented first, right? They're trying to turn algae into gasoline right now, growing algae in vats and then reprogramming it to turn into a fuel, right? A fossil fuel. So these things are going to happen at first in terms of products, but it's going to quickly evolve into modifying human beings and modifying people. And I think that's just a very fascinating concept, okay? So how does this relate now to blockchain, cryptocurrency, and so forth, okay? So did you know that the entire internet can be stored on one strand of DNA, right? That is the computational power or storage capacity that a single strand of DNA has in its makeup. The complexity is so great, yet so simple, that the entire breadth of the internet, as we know it, can fit on one strand of DNA, guys, within DNA. That is mind-blowing, okay? So think about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and we're talking way down the road here, but databases have obviously exponentially grown. Data is now the new gold. It's the new oil, right? Companies hand over fist are making money because of data, and that's not going to slow down, right? As genetics are speeding up, they're creating terabytes, petabytes of data, like we've never seen before, that kind of dwarf the internet, that dwarf encyclopedias and things like that. Like, the amount of data that's being created is mind-blowing. They're going to need somewhere to store that data. They're going to need systems to be able to organize that data, to store that data, and to ultimately distribute and transfer that data to other places, right? Whether that's to other people around the world, whether that's into other bodies, whatever that may be. And blockchain technology is kind of a first weird, crude attempt and crude example of how you can store massive amounts of data in a decentralized way to enable access of that data across very different parts of the world in very, very different environments and in a variety of different capacities, right? And if you take that to the next level, as nanotechnology comes out, as programmable DNA becomes more important, you're going to need systems and mechanisms to be able to store that data and transfer it across a variety of entities, many of those being living entities, many of those being artificial intelligence entities. And you're going to need a way to do that. And you're going to need a way to organize that and store it and distribute it. And imagine blockchain kind of acting, the fundamental concepts of blockchain acting in that same way, but through DNA, through living organisms. I mean, are we hitting the point where we can no longer use silicone to build conductors and build chips for computers to increase computational power? We are hitting that point. Moore's law, you know, everything doubles over a year or 2 years or whatever it is. You know, we are hitting limits of Moore's law, and we're looking for other substrates to continue the progress, the exponential increase, you know, of this computational power that we so desperately need to keep the world functioning and evolving and progressing like it is today. And, you know, one method of doing that is to use a blockchain type of system over DNA, over living organisms, you know, to make that happen, okay? So I have a lot more to say. This video is already 16 minutes long, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. I will likely make another video like this, potentially in the future. I didn't even talk about artificial intelligence. I didn't really even get into immortality like I wanted to. Didn't really get into nanotechnology or robotics, but again, other technologies that are really poised to change this world very, very dramatically and significantly in the next couple decades, okay? So another guy, look up Ray Kurzweil. If you don't know who he is, he wrote the book Singularity. That's a good educational piece. But more to come on this, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video of my rant. And I hope you find it useful, educational, insightful, and if nothing else, intriguing, and ultimately just fun to explore. I've had a really good time exploring these topics, so I hope you do too. I'm Dan from CryptoCamacho.com, guys. I'm going to check out before it gets too dark and before I crash on the freeway here. So again, sorry for the jiggling in this, the phone and the video is jiggling up and down. I know, I apologize for that, but want to give you some nuggets here while I'm driving. But guys, Dan from CryptoCamacho.com. If you like my content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would be most grateful, and I appreciate it for anybody who leaves comments and who engages. I love having conversations. So let me know, guys, if you want to talk, if you want to interview, if you want me to do some more live videos, I'm happy to do that as well. But let me know, guys. I will talk to you later. See you guys. Can't look, but